The darkest forces in our universe have one surprising weakness, and it's been hiding in plain sight all along. The very qualities that society often dismisses as too feminine are actually powerful spiritual weapons that demons cannot stand against. This isn't just ancient wisdom, it's a truth that's been documented across cultures, traditions, and centuries of spiritual warfare. You see, while the world may tell you that being emotional, nurturing, intuitive, or too giving are weaknesses, these traits carry an extraordinary power that evil forces desperately try to suppress. There's a reason why cultures throughout history have targeted and tried to shame these specific feminine qualities, because they're incredibly threatening to forces that want to maintain control. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal 4 feminine traits that act as natural repellents against dark entities. These aren't just theories, they're backed by centuries of spiritual teachings and testimonies. You'll discover why your emotional sensitivity isn't a weakness, but a shield. You'll learn how your nurturing instincts create barriers that demons can't penetrate. And most importantly, you'll understand why embracing these feminine qualities might be your strongest form of spiritual protection. But here's what makes this really interesting. These traits work whether you believe in them or not. Just like gravity doesn't care if you believe in it, these spiritual principles operate on a level beyond our conscious awareness. By the end of this video, you'll understand not only how to recognize these traits within yourself, but how to amplify them for maximum spiritual protection. Stay with me, because the 4th trait is particularly powerful. It's one that dark forces have been trying to eliminate from society for generations, and once you understand why, you'll never look at your feminine nature the same way again. Emotional intelligence stands as a cornerstone of spiritual armor, acting as an invisible force field that demons simply cannot comprehend. What makes this trait particularly fascinating is how it operates on multiple levels of protection. Deep empathy, feeling what others feel, sensing their pain, their joy, their struggles, creates vibrations that repel dark entities at their very core. When someone walks into a room and instantly picks up on unspoken tensions, recognizes hidden pain behind a smile, or senses the weight of unspoken burdens, they're wielding a power that transcends physical reality. Demons, in their singular focus on causing harm, lack this fundamental ability to connect with and understand emotions. Their inability to process genuine emotional depth makes them virtually powerless against those who embrace their emotional intelligence. This spiritual dynamic reveals itself in countless ways. Think of moments when a mother instantly knows something is wrong with her child, despite being miles away, or when a friend reaches out exactly when needed without being told anything is wrong. These aren't coincidences, they're manifestations of emotional intelligence operating as a spiritual radar system. But it goes even deeper. By developing emotional awareness, women naturally create environments where dark forces cannot thrive. Demons feed on emotional chaos, confusion, and disconnection. Yet in spaces where emotions are acknowledged, processed, and honored, these entities find no foothold. It's similar to trying to create shadows in a room filled with light. It's simply impossible. Most striking is how this trait strengthens not just individual protection, but extends to safeguard entire communities. When someone with high emotional intelligence enters a troubled situation, their mere presence can shift the spiritual atmosphere. They instinctively bring clarity to confusion, calm to chaos, and healing to hurt, all states that naturally ward off demonic influence. In practical terms, this manifests as an ability to sense spiritual disturbances before they escalate, identify and dissolve negative emotional patterns that attract dark forces, create emotionally safe spaces that naturally repel demonic energy, maintain spiritual boundaries through emotional awareness, build networks of emotional support that strengthen collective spiritual defense. What's particularly powerful about emotional intelligence as a spiritual defense is that it grows stronger with use. Each time someone chooses to lean into their emotional awareness rather than suppress it, their protective abilities expand. This compounds over time, creating an increasingly impenetrable shield against dark forces. Centuries of spiritual teachings point to this truth. Emotions aren't just feelings, they're frequencies. And certain emotional frequencies, particularly those associated with deep empathy and emotional understanding, operate at vibrations that demons simply cannot tolerate. By embracing rather than suppressing emotional intelligence, women access an ancient and powerful form of spiritual protection that dark forces have long tried to diminish. In essence, emotional intelligence transforms from what society might label as oversensitivity into a sophisticated spiritual defense system, one that not only protects but also illuminates, heals, and strengthens the human spirit against dark influences. Nurturing acts radiate a spiritual energy that creates an impenetrable barrier against demonic forces. Ancient wisdom speaks of how acts of care and cultivation, from tending gardens to nurturing relationships, generate protective frequencies that dark entities cannot penetrate. Most fascinating is how this protective power amplifies itself. Each nurturing action builds upon previous ones, creating layers of spiritual defense that grow stronger over time. At its core, nurturing nature operates as direct opposition to demonic destruction. While dark forces seek to tear down, corrupt, and destroy, nurturing energy builds up, repairs, and brings forth new life. This fundamental opposition creates a natural repulsion. Demons literally cannot maintain their presence in spaces where active nurturing takes place. It's similar to how oil and water cannot mix. These energies operate on completely different spiritual frequencies. Preparing nourishing meals for loved ones, for instance, does more than feed physical bodies. Each intentional act of food preparation weaves threads of protective energy, creating shields that extend far beyond kitchen walls. When someone takes time to listen deeply to a friend in need, they're not just offering comfort, they're generating waves of spiritual protection that ripple outward, affecting both individuals and their broader community. This protective power manifests particularly strongly in how nurturing nature affects physical spaces. Homes where regular acts of care take place, from maintaining clean, orderly environments to creating cozy, welcoming atmospheres, naturally repel dark energies. These spaces become spiritual fortresses, not through complex rituals or procedures, but through simple, consistent acts of nurturing care. Even more remarkable is how nurturing nature creates generational protection. When someone teaches a child to care for plants, animals, or other people, they're passing down more than just practical skills, they're transmitting spiritual defense mechanisms that can protect future generations. Each lesson in nurturing adds another layer to this protective inheritance. Science inadvertently confirms this spiritual truth through studies showing how nurturing behaviors trigger specific brainwave patterns and hormonal responses that promote healing and harmony. While researchers might not frame it in spiritual terms, they're observing physical manifestations of nurturing's protective power. These measurable changes in body chemistry and brain activity create conditions where demonic influences simply cannot take hold. Particularly powerful is how nurturing nature extends protection to others who may be vulnerable to dark influences. By creating environments of care and support, nurturers establish safe havens that shield not just themselves, but everyone within their sphere of influence. This multiplier effect explains why demons throughout history have specifically targeted those with strong nurturing abilities. They recognize this trait's power to disrupt their plans on a massive scale. Modern society often dismisses nurturing as soft or unnecessary, yet this dismissal reveals a profound misunderstanding of its spiritual significance. In reality, nurturing nature operates as one of the most potent forms of spiritual warfare available. It doesn't just defend against dark forces, it actively creates conditions where they cannot exist, transforming environments and relationships through consistent acts of care and cultivation. This protective power grows exponentially when combined with intention and awareness. Small daily acts of nurturing, watering plants, preparing spaces for rest, offering words of encouragement, become powerful spiritual practices that strengthen personal and collective defense against demonic influences. Intuitive discernment acts as a spiritual radar system, operating far beyond rational thought or logical analysis. Deep within feminine consciousness lies an ability to sense spiritual danger before it physically manifests, a gift that demons find particularly threatening. This natural capacity for spiritual detection works constantly, processing thousands of subtle signals that mind and body receive from surrounding energetic fields. Most striking about intuitive discernment is how it bypasses conscious thought processes. That inexplicable feeling when something seems off about a situation, despite everything appearing normal on surface level, represents this gift in action. While demons excel at deception and disguise, they cannot hide from someone whose intuitive discernment has been fully awakened and embraced. Women throughout history have demonstrated this remarkable ability to detect spiritual threats without tangible evidence. Stories span cultures and centuries of mothers who suddenly knew their children were in danger, or individuals who avoided catastrophe by following an unexplainable inner prompting. These weren't random coincidences, but examples of intuitive discernment serving its protective purpose. What makes this trait especially powerful is its resistance to manipulation. While dark forces can often deceive rational minds through clever arguments or false evidence, they cannot corrupt pure intuitive knowing. It operates like an internal compass that always points toward truth, regardless of how convincing external deception might appear. Scientific research inadvertently validates this spiritual gift through studies of brain function and nervous system responses. Research shows women generally possess more active neural pathways connecting emotional centers with decision-making areas, precisely configuration needed for powerful intuitive discernment. Though scientists might not frame it in spiritual terms, they're documenting physical architecture supporting this supernatural protection system. Particularly fascinating is how intuitive discernment strengthens through use. Each time someone honors their inner knowing rather than dismissing it, this spiritual muscle grows stronger. It's similar to tuning a radio. With practice, signal becomes clearer and easier to interpret. Dark forces often work to create doubt about these intuitive promptings precisely because they recognize this trait's potential to expose their presence. This gift manifests in numerous ways.
sudden awareness of spiritual atmosphere changes in specific location, immediate recognition of hidden intentions behind seemingly innocent proposals, clear sensing of whether advice or guidance aligns with divine truth, instant detection of spiritual manipulation attempts, natural ability to distinguish between genuine spiritual light and its counterfeit. Beyond individual protection, intuitive discernment serves vital role in safeguarding communities. Those with developed discernment often sense collective dangers before they fully manifest, allowing preventive action rather than reactive response. This early warning system proves invaluable in spiritual warfare, as it enables strategic positioning before dark forces can establish strongholds. Modern society's emphasis on pure logic and dismissal of intuitive knowing represents one of dark forces' most successful attempts to suppress this protective trait. By convincing people to doubt or ignore their intuitive signals, demons create opportunities to operate undetected. Yet this suppression cannot eliminate gift entirely. It merely lies dormant, ready to reawaken when acknowledged and trusted. Critically important is recognizing that intuitive discernment requires no external validation. Unlike other forms of knowing that depend on evidence or consensus, this trait operates independently, providing clear guidance regardless of external circumstances or others' opinions. Sacrificial love stands as an ultimate weapon against dark forces, wielding power that transcends physical and spiritual realms. Within this profound feminine trait lies an energy so pure, so potent, that demons flee from its mere presence. Most remarkable about sacrificial love is how it operates, not through force or dominance, but through willing surrender of self for others' well-being. Deep spiritual truths reveal why this trait proves so devastating to demonic entities. While dark forces operate on principles of taking, consuming, and destroying, sacrificial love flows in complete opposition, giving, nurturing, and building up. This fundamental contrast creates spiritual frequencies that demons find unbearable, like intense light piercing absolute darkness. Ancient wisdom speaks of how mothers, through acts of sacrificial love, create protective barriers around their children that dark forces cannot penetrate. Each time someone chooses to put others' needs before their own comfort, they generate waves of protective energy that ripple through spiritual realms. These aren't merely poetic metaphors, they represent real spiritual dynamics that have been observed across cultures and centuries. Particularly powerful is how sacrificial love transforms spiritual atmospheres. In spaces where this love actively operates, demons find no foothold. It's similar to trying to establish darkness in a room flooded with light, impossible while light source remains active. Every act of selfless giving strengthens this protective illumination, making affected areas increasingly inhospitable to dark influences. Most fascinating is how this trait multiplies its effectiveness through consistent application. Small daily sacrifices, giving up personal time to help others, choosing patience over frustration, extending forgiveness instead of holding grudges, compound over time. Each act builds upon previous ones, creating layers of spiritual protection that grow increasingly impenetrable. Sacrificial love manifests through various expressions, willingly taking on others' burdens to lighten their load, choosing to serve even when exhausted or overwhelmed, maintaining gentle responses in face of hostility, giving best resources rather than leftovers, protecting others' reputations, even at personal cost. What makes this trait particularly remarkable is its sustainability through divine connection. While human strength eventually depletes, sacrificial love taps into infinite spiritual resources, allowing continuous giving without permanent depletion. This supernatural replenishment explains why those operating in sacrificial love often display inexplicable endurance. Research inadvertently confirms these spiritual principles through studies showing how acts of selfless giving trigger release of specific neurochemicals that promote healing and resilience. Though scientists might not recognize spiritual implications, they're documenting physical effects of sacrificial love's protective power. Modern culture often mocks or dismisses sacrificial love as weakness or martyrdom, yet this misconception reveals profound ignorance of its spiritual power. In reality, this trait represents one of the strongest forms of spiritual warfare available. It doesn't just defend against dark forces, it actively creates conditions where they cannot operate effectively. Perhaps most significant is how sacrificial love creates generational impact. When someone consistently demonstrates this trait, they establish patterns that influence future generations, creating protective legacies that extend far beyond their immediate sphere. This multiplication effect explains why dark forces throughout history have specifically targeted those expressing sacrificial love. They recognize its potential to disrupt their plans across generations. Within this feminine trait lies power to not only protect but transform, turning battlegrounds into gardens, conflicts into peace, and darkness into light through consistent acts of selfless giving. Within these four feminine traits lies a spiritual arsenal more powerful than any dark force could withstand. Emotional intelligence, operating as our internal spiritual radar, detects and deflects negative energies before they can take root. Through deep empathy and emotional awareness, we create environments where demons simply cannot maintain their presence. Nurturing nature transforms everyday actions into powerful spiritual shields. Each meal prepared with love, every space maintained with care, and all relationships cultivated with attention generate protective frequencies that ripple outward, affecting not just individuals but entire communities. What might seem like simple acts of care actually weave complex layers of spiritual protection that strengthen over time. Intuitive discernment serves as our supernatural early warning system. That inexplicable knowing, that gut feeling about people or situations, represents one of our strongest defenses against dark forces. While demons excel at deception, they cannot hide from someone whose intuitive gifts have been fully awakened and embraced. By honoring these internal promptings rather than dismissing them, we strengthen this protective capacity. Yet perhaps most powerful among these traits is sacrificial love, an energy so pure, so potent that dark forces must flee from its presence. Every time we choose others' well-being over our own comfort, we generate waves of protective power that transform spiritual atmospheres. These acts of selfless giving compound over time, creating increasingly impenetrable shields against demonic influence. Together, these 4 traits create a spiritual defense system unmatched in its effectiveness. While society might dismiss or even mock these feminine qualities, history reveals their true power. Across cultures and centuries, those who fully embraced these traits demonstrated remarkable protection against dark forces. This isn't coincidence, it's evidence of eternal spiritual principles at work. Most fascinating is how these traits work in harmony. Emotional intelligence enhances intuitive discernment. Nurturing nature strengthens capacity for sacrificial love. Each trait amplifies others, creating synergistic protection greater than sum of individual parts. When consciously cultivated together, they form an integrated spiritual shield that dark forces find increasingly difficult to penetrate. But here's what makes this knowledge truly transformative. These traits already exist within feminine nature. They don't require complex rituals or extensive training to activate. Simply acknowledging and embracing these natural qualities begins strengthening their protective power. Each time we choose to operate in these traits rather than suppress them, we enhance their effectiveness. Looking forward, imagine communities where these feminine traits are fully honored and expressed. Places where emotional intelligence guides decision-making, where nurturing nature shapes environments, where intuitive discernment informs choices, and where sacrificial love transforms relationships. Such communities would naturally repel dark influences, creating safe havens that extend protection to future generations. This journey of embracing feminine spiritual power continues beyond this video. Each day brings new opportunities to strengthen these protective traits through conscious choice and consistent action. By recognizing and honoring these qualities within ourselves and others, we participate in ancient spiritual warfare that operates not through force but through traits demons find utterly repulsive. If this exploration of feminine spiritual power has resonated with you, take a moment to engage with this community. Hit that like button to help spread these crucial insights to others seeking spiritual protection. Subscribe to join ongoing journey of discovering and reclaiming feminine spiritual heritage. By sharing this knowledge, we strengthen collective spiritual defense against dark forces. Most importantly, remember, what society might label as feminine weakness actually represents extraordinary spiritual strength. These traits aren't burdens to overcome but gifts to embrace. In a world increasingly vulnerable to dark influences, these feminine qualities offer protection not just for individuals, but for entire communities. Share your experiences in comments below. How have you witnessed these traits providing protection in your own life? What insights have you gained about feminine spiritual power? Together we're rediscovering and reclaiming spiritual heritage that dark forces have long tried to suppress. Click subscribe now to continue exploring ancient wisdom and spiritual truths that empower feminine nature. Activate notification bell to ensure you never miss future revelations about spiritual warfare and protection. Until next time, embrace these powerful feminine traits. They're your birthright and your spiritual armor.